I do think there is, and I hinted to this yesterday.
Yeah.
But I think it's been interesting in listening, and, the Browns have preached what this season is going to be about for them offensively. And I believe them, by the way. I'm the first person to be like, I'm not entirely sure about that. That seems like something you would lie about. I think the Browns' intention is run heavy, build off the play action, and throw when you have to, and bank on an elite defense. And so the big it term, if you've been listening to Sports Talk Radio this month, has been ball control.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. By the way, just in fairness, a lot of teams going to try ball control this year. So the Browns, and they also want to play good defense. So there's not a lot that's unique about the Browns, other than their margin for error isn't what it is with other teams. And to me, that's why it always made more sense to start Joe Flacco than Dillon Gabriel, no matter who they like more or invested in more, is Joe gives you more upside when it comes to big plays. I have a feeling, and we'll see week 1, because that's going to be a great test against a bad defense. Mm-hmm. I have a feeling that if you're trying to establish an identity right off the rip, and that identity is run heavy, you might end up neutering Joe Flacco in a way that precipitates a quicker demise of Joe Flacco, because Joe Flacco's value to you as a team subsides off the balance of good big plays and bad big plays.
Right.
But if you're just diminishing the play opportunities, the opportunities to throw the ball, well, while you might be diminishing the downside, you might also be diminishing and sterilizing the upside of this. And I kind of think that's not the way you should go.
So, the Browns, obviously, they led the league last year in interceptions. And so that's why when they say turn the ball over and they want to make sure that they have ball control, it does have some sense of being valid based off of that they were so awful with it last year. But I thought a lot of this talking and them trying to basically replicate what the Steelers do, I think that was based off the function of Kenny Pickett starting and then Dillon Gabriel being the backup. Mm-hmm. And now that Kenny Pickett's not the starting quarterback, because if Pickett was, then that's what you do. Also, I think a lot of this had Judkins being in line to be the starting running back as well, which is another part of this equation that just isn't true. No Judkins and then Joe Flacco means you got to let Joe Flacco eat.
Yeah, or are we going to go with you got to let him eat or you got to let him cook? Is Cook too close to Russ?
I think of Marshawn Lynch then with the bowl of cereal and he's just eating, or really the Zeke Elliott.
I was going to say Zeke Elliott,
and he's just eating and he's just getting after it. And you're like, is that Fruit Loops? Is it gold? What are you eating? I have no idea. But that's what I'm doing with Joe Flacco.
I feel like the only chance you have to supersede expectations, because there's meeting expectations or slightly surpassing them, which is 6 wins, right? We'll get into that in that whole bag of potato chips that I just think is just soggy at best. But I think you gotta let Joe Flacco be Joe Flacco. Mm-hmm. And I think you do have to let him cook. Now, obviously, when Joe averaged 41 passing attempts at the end of the season in 2023, when that happened matters, right? You're more liable to lock into an ideology. We gotta set this identity for ourselves early in a season.
Yeah, at the end of the season a couple years ago, it wasn't like you were trying to build something with Joe. You really were just like, all right, Joe, if you find something great. And they did. They found something, which was awesome. But it was like a 5% chance of it happening. And then you just kind of roll with it. And they did. They rode the hot hand.
I think if you err on the side of ball control, even though that, and here's why I think they might do this, because that's how you set up to turn the keys over to Dillon Gabriel. If you have the no risky, no bisky offense, if Joe Flacco is throwing the ball 41 times a game, 41 pass attempts per game, and no matter if they win or lose, and then you try and turn the keys over to Dillon Gabriel, there's not going to be structure for him to step into. Meaning the transition.
It's going to be different is all.
Well, but the transition's going to be difficult. Whereas if you limit Joe's throws to 30 to 33.
Yeah, but I can't limit Joe to try to set up Dillon.
I think it makes sense that you would do that.
I don't think you can do that.
Well, no. I'm playing devil's advocate on this one because I'm right where you are. But if the ideal goal is by week 6 or week 8 or week 9, week 9's the bye, but week 10, it's Dillon's team. Then as much as you want to, you're going to be constantly pulled in one direction. Either we're trying to win, Joe throws more, that's good, or ball control, setting up the run, establishing a dominant run game no matter who your running back is. That's predicated on a great offensive line, and that favors the transition from Joe to Dillon. And this is
I mean, I think they like Dillon, but I think that's a bad plan if that's the plan. Like you have to let Joe be Joe and give him a real chance, and you really can't have Dillon Gabriel in the back of your mind at all when thinking about Joe.
I would tend to agree with you, but I think there's been such a national. So many people have come around to the idea of Dillon playing early. This goes back to what's the plan and why having a plan or not having a plan or concepts of a plan matter, right? Because if your plan is to win as many games as possible, then you don't have any concepts of a plan for Dillon Gabriel. You're going to run with Joe until the legs come out from under you, right? At the same point, because everybody might not have alignment, or because Kevin might see what he's been longing for this entire damn time in Dillon Gabriel, right? Shut up, do what I tell you to do, don't turn the ball over. Those two things are at odds with each other. Building for the future, seeing what you've got in the future, seeing what you've got in Dillon Gabriel is absolutely at odds with what's best for winning, which is let Joe cook. And if you ask me right now, I know there's how I think you should attack it if you're trying not to lose that locker room, but there are so many variables in this I don't definitively know. Maybe I'm overvaluing the preseason game.
Maybe.
I really worry that they're going to try and tamp down what Joe does. And I'm sorry, there are just certain quarterbacks that no risky, no biscuits how you live with them.
So wait, I mean, even in the preseason game, I think that was a different scenario in many ways. But he was 9 for 10. He was really effective. Like if that's the version that you get with Joe Flacco, that's not a bad version either.
One more time, sorry, buddy.
With you mentioned the preseason game. Were you talking about Gabriel or you're talking about Flacco in that instance? Because if we get that version of Flacco, again, he was 9 for 10. He had 1 incompletion. If that's the version that you get with Joe Flacco, it wasn't as no risky, no bisky, but that's because it really didn't set up for that in any way. Though he did have a nice strike to Fannin, obviously. But like, if that's the version of Flacco, that's not a bad version either.
Yeah, but that's for what, one quarter for 30 plays?
I mean, I don't think it's sustainable.
I think if you extrapolate that across 4 quarters, I think that gets easy to plan for very quickly.
No, I do too. I think you're limiting what makes Joe Flacco special. But you mentioned one preseason game was throwing you off. That's why I asked: was it Flacco that threw you off, or was it Gabriel that threw you off?
Yes, because I think what you saw with Dillon across the 2 weeks, I think that is how I think Kevin would love if Dillon Gabriel was his Brock Purdy. And we can have debate. You know how I feel about Brock Purdy. I actually think Dillon's got a better arm than Brock Purdy, although not the biggest.
Well, it's definitely stronger. I mean, that's not even a debate.
Biggest vote of confidence ever. But I think ideally, if Kevin across 18 weeks could say this is what the Browns' offense is, I think it looks a lot more like what you did with Dillon Gabriel in preseason. Even though, by the way, again, I think some of it's vanilla and it's the offseason, even though you did some of that vanilla with Joe. And I think what's the easiest way to get to Dillon Gabriel? Vanilla it up with Joe Flacco.
I mean, I think if you go to Joe until you are out of the playoffs or not even having a chance to sniff the playoffs, if that puts Dillon Gabriel in an uncomfortable position because the offense isn't set up for him, and then he struggles because of that, then okay, fine. Then you lose a lot of games, and then you're even in a better position to then take the quarterback you want in 2026.
I tend to think.
I just don't look at Dillon Gabriel as some sort of long-term answer anyway, no matter what happens.
I think they do. I really do think they do.
I mean, I still think that they think of him as a backup. I think you and I
think they're backups. I think Daryl thinks he's a backup.
If right now they thought to themselves, we're not in on the 2026 quarterback class because Dillon Gabriel is going to be our starter in 2026, I'd be very surprised.
This is where the they of it gets very confusing very quickly. I think Kevin Stefanski believes in Dillon Gabriel. I think he thinks we had Coach Rislin on Coach Rislin yesterday. I keep throwing that. He's the Rizzler. Everybody knows him as the Rizzler.
Coach Riz.
He's the most famous Rizzler on social media.
At this point,
everybody knows.
Those kids have gone boom all the way down, though. I don't know where they are.
So have they gone bust?
Basically,
that's tougher to say. That's not as catchy. Strike that from the record.
Where did they go? They were everywhere for like a year.
I believe they went to Costco.
They're gone. Are they just live in Costco now?
Or did they switch alliance? Are they Sam's Club kids?
No, they found one of those Coleman tents and just they stay in there now 24/7.
Now
they went out to eat beef jerky.
I don't know that Andrew Berry sees a starting quarterback. I don't know Jimmy Haslam sees a starting quarterback. I think Kevin Stefanski looks at Dillon Gabriel as the guy to do if Baker Mayfield had done this, Baker would still be here.
I mean, if that was the case, if what you're saying is actually true, then it's a bad job by Stefanski not to get him to start week 1. But I don't think he actually sees it that way. I think he looks at Dillon Gabriel as a backup quarterback, and if you can win 50% of your games as a backup when they do have the 2026 starter in there, then that's gravy to him.
I think they've already told you how they feel about Dillon with how much they let him, and this is going to sound wrong, but how much they let him fail in the preseason. That to me is trust. If they know, hey, you've got this, you just need to figure out the production side of this, but your process, and that's how they feel about him. His process is exactly what they want. The production just wasn't. Shador's process is the issue, right? Literally processing the damn play call. But this is why those two quarterbacks are fighting different wars or different battles in the same war, I guess is maybe the better way to put it. I think the amount that they gave Dillon Gabriel showed you that they didn't just treat him like a backup. They were getting that kid ready to play. You don't do that for backups. Even rookies. Especially, by the way, you don't do it for third-rounders in general. You sure as hell don't do it for third-round backups.
I mean, it's not like they gave him like a million reps with the ones and everything. He had some reps with the ones, but it wasn't an overwhelming amount.
He had the second most amount of reps.
Yes,
and by the way,
as with the backup quarterback on a team,
I think you're confusing what will piss you off this year with what actually is going to happen. This goes back to let's prepare ourselves for Dillon Gabriel to play. I think
we just don't see how they feel about Dillon the same way. I think you think that they think that Dillon's some sort of superstar in the making.
No.
I don't think that at all.
No, I think he's a system quarterback in the making.
If you're going to pass on 2026 and taking a quarterback there, you have to think higher than just a system quarterback in the making.
No, because system quarterback is not the derogatory term to Kevin Stefanski.
It was when it was trying to be Baker Mayfield as your system quarterback.
That's because it was Baker Mayfield, and Baker Mayfield didn't bow at the altar of Kevin Stefanski.
I mean, they told us routinely in that whole entire Baker Mayfield experience that they didn't want a quarterback to be what's in that Brock Purdy range of 10 to 15th best in the NFL.
And I think the positional, the perception of the position around the NFL has changed. I also think they're at a different point. With Baker, he's going to be a franchise quarterback because we're going to have to pay him $50 million a year. With this, we just need somebody to stabilize the position and get out of the way of everything else so we can just win. I think you can win in short bursts with a system quarterback. And I really do think, maybe it's Kirk Cousins. Maybe this can be the Kirk Cousins of this. I think Kevin Stefanski is a firm believer in Dillon Gabriel, and that's why I don't think any of this is a coincidence. And I just think he believes in him more than he believed in Shador right now, and I think he believes in him as really, ultimately, I think part of the difference, and Coach Riz did lay it out for us last night, I think he's 100% right. Right now, Dillon Gabriel can run an offense, and he can be the game manager, and he can be the system quarterback in that way, whereas Shador's got more pop to himself. He's going to have a higher ceiling, and is going to be maybe 2 or 3 years down the line just an overall better player. But Stefanski needs something right now that isn't going to turn the ball over, that is going to be able to run his offense, and is going to be able to be competent. Given that Stefanski liked Kenny Pickett more than Joe Flacco, I'm going to go out on a limb that might be able to support my girth and say that, I bet you he likes Dillon Gabriel more than Joe Flacco. The difference is whether or not he likes him to the degree of saying the 2026 quarterback isn't what we're doing. That's where we disagree. But I don't think Kevin's thinking about that. He needs to be. Andrew Berry is no. He doesn't. He's the head coach. He's thinking about today. He's thinking about winning. He's thinking about saving his ass. He's thinking about getting to next year, not next year's draft. No, if he's thinking about Dillon Gabriel as a long-term starter, then he has to be thinking about next year's draft and accounting for all this into play. That's not how head coaches think. It's how GMs think. It's how you and I think. It's how they organizationally he's got a brain and is around the Browns. He's thinking about the 2026 quarterback draft. No. But he should be thinking about the offseason. Once you get into the season, you're thinking about, all right, what tools do I have at my disposal to do what I want so we can win damn games? I don't know. If he thought he was this great, I just don't see it. I think he thinks he's someone that's competent, that he can put in the system, and if he needs to win a few games because Joe Flacco and the wheels fall off, maybe he can get you a couple, but I don't think he's thinking big long-term plans with Dillon Gabriel. And I think competent and I think good enough, I think right now is basically a kink for Kevin, who's had nothing but dysfunction, drama, and bad quarterback play who, according to most people who conveniently know Joe, or who I think conveniently espouse maybe some words that maybe Kevin would say if he were being honest. I think Kevin looks at this and goes, I finally have a quarterback that just won't screw this up, and I'm sick of doing all the other managing that I have to do.